For more on this, we're now joined by Khaya Sithole, an independent analyst, and he joins us via our telephone line for more on this conversation. Khaya, thank you so much for your time this evening. Perhaps let's start off here. What is your take on the steps taken by the Financial Sector Conduct Authority by fining Markus Jooste 475 million rand?
Good evening to the viewers. So obviously, I think there is a lot of anxiety around how long it's taken to get here. If you remember, this is a story that broke in December 2017, so it's taken quite a while to get here. But from what we heard today, obviously the investigation has been completed, and I think that the documents in front of the FSCA made it very clear that there was a lot of fraudulent financial misrepresentation committed by Markus Jooste and his foot soldiers within the Steinhoff empire. And of course, what they did is that it really led many investors to take the wrong decisions based on what they thought was credible information, and on the basis of that, he has indeed been found in violation of the principles of the Financial Markets Act. So it was not surprising that indeed he was found guilty, but perhaps a lot of people are alarmed by the scale of the punishment that has been meted out.
And of course, we understand that he needs to pay this fine by the 19th of April. Do you think that he will appeal this decision?
Obviously, I do not think that he is in a position to pay the fine because he's not willing to do so. But also, even a fine that was levied a couple of years ago, which was initially 162 million rand and then was reduced to 20 million, he still has not paid that one. So if he's not willing to pay something that's small, relatively small, at 20 million rand, the 475 million is probably not going to be the type of thing that he engages in paying. So he will probably still appeal this one and hope to reduce that amount, even then still argue that he shouldn't pay it at all.
How long can this entire process take? I mean, even the Financial Sector Conduct Authority saying that Markus Jooste may even take the longer route and take a legal battle to try and not, pay back this money. Do you think that this can take a couple of years before we see Markus Jooste paying some sort of fine?
Well, disturbingly, it has indeed even taken so long to get to this stage, because you'd have to imagine, and this is something that the FSCA does need to be able to answer to, in that the type of information that was used in their investigation is not information that emerged last week or a couple of months ago. It's information that's been very clear since 2017 at least, and it's information that would have been supported by the PwC investigation that said, well, actually there are a lot of things that went wrong there. So it's quite worrying that it's taken this long to be able to really investigate these types of crimes and also then reach the conclusions that have been reached, and the conclusions are not surprising. There was definitely a lot of inflation of profits and asset values within that particular stable. So if it's taken this long just to conclude the first leg of it, and now we can imagine that the Financial Tribunal will also have to engage in it, and then thereafter the High Court, and after the High Court you're going to go all the way up to escalation. It will take many years before we reach finality, and probably it is only after we reach finality where we're then going to start entertaining the question of, will there be an exchange of funds? Whether you still have money by the time we get there, we do not know.
In the near future, can we see Markus Jooste paying some sort of money back? I mean, you spoke a bit earlier on about that 20 million rand in which he was fined, and he still hasn't paid that. And this is a bigger bill that he has to pay. Can we see him paying any sort of fine anytime soon?
The answer is simple no. There's absolutely no amount that he's going to pay. And remember, there is a domino effect in that if he starts conceding on some of these charges, it then makes it very clear that his defense, or whatever he thinks his defense might be in relation to these related charges, would then be severely weakened. So you can't imagine that his legal advisors would say, well, concede on that one and still hope to argue that you're not culpable in another, because these all originate from the same type of malfeasance that he conducted in his role as the Chief Executive Officer of Steinhoff.
And Khaya, this is a case and a matter that has been dragging on for many years now. And looking at, those people who have lost a number of their investments and people who've also lost their pension funds, this step being taken and this new fine, what does it mean overall for those who have lost their money?
I think the scale of the losses that we witnessed during those couple of days in December 2017 were so enormous and so unprecedented. You are never going to reach a stage where everybody feels that Markus Jooste has been punished adequately in relation to what he did. I think even when you heard today the number 425 million, it sounds like an impossible number to you and I, because we'll possibly never be in a position to pay this, but it's actually still a fraction of the enormous social harm that was caused by his conduct. And I think it is probably important for people to acknowledge that we are never going to get to a stage where he gets fined 200 billion or whatever the number might be that matches the social harm that we've seen then. And the problem is that obviously regulators have to regulate for the market at large and not for the outliers. And this case was an outlier, but it will be foolhardy to imagine that somebody is going to buy an extra billions out of him. This is probably as good as it's going to get in the 425 million, but you know that ultimately it will be a fraction of that if it ever gets paid.
And Kai, perhaps if maybe you can give us an update as well. I mean, he is facing, or rather the German country is looking at arresting Markus Jooste for failing to appear before court. Where does this leave that matter?
The problem with the German process is that unfortunately, like in many jurisdictions, it is subject to a statute of limitations. We do know that by the time the case was first heard, a lot of the charges already had to be abandoned on the basis that the German law said, well, some of these cases have been brought, some of these matters have been brought too late to them. So we haven't received an update recently to indicate whether any of the matters are alive, but I think the great tragedy is that if nothing materializes in the near term, we may then find out that actually there isn't the capacity anymore to actually hold him accountable, even in that particular jurisdiction, which we must confess did a lot more, at least started the steps that the South African authorities seem to be struggling to do, especially when it comes to the NPA.
All right, Khaya, thank you so much for that insight and that contribution. That is Khaya Sithole, the independent analyst, giving us his insights when it comes to that new fine which has been put before Markus Jooste, the former CEO of Steinhoff, 475 million rand.